When two shapeshifters face off, it's usually quite timid, but it becomes a globe-trotting, very costly and highly destructive affair when it involves these two knuckleheads, Warlock and the Impossible Man. Warlock is an alien belonging to the hive mind techno-organic species called a Technarch. The tradition of his people is that the children must destroy their parents, while the parents in turn attempt to destroy their spawn and draw upon their energy to keep surviving. Imagine Thanksgiving on their planet. Warlock is a mutant of sorts in that he lacks his species' urge to commit patricide. So rather than die at his father's hands, he flees to Earth where he joins the New Mutants. Warlock has the ability to shapeshift into almost anything, and often served as the team's mode of transportation. He can also easily adopt a human form to move amongst the public. His father, known as Magus, in his first appearance, tore a sun apart looking for Warlock and proceeded to yeet half of it towards the planet his son was hiding on. While Warlock is nowhere near this power level, it's been stated that he could potentially become so over time. He's got a lot to learn about human society, but what he does learn, he applies well. He's a super strong, organic machine with no weakness to water, and he still wears his life vest when swimming. Take note, kids, don't be a knucklehead. The Impossible Man is also an alien, a member of the species called the Papapians. On their home planet, they were routinely hunted by predators, so the Papapians evolved the ability to have complete control of their molecular structure and using it to shapeshift, either to hide from their predators or turn into denser material that simply couldn't be eaten. They could emulate the functions of items they copied, such as fully functional spaceships. This is how they travel the galaxy under their own power. It does seem that their reserves can be drained, as Impossible Man states to be very hungry after a spaceflight. Mass also seems to be no problem for these guys, as Impossible Man has become as small as an ant to sneak into a vault, and as large as Godzilla. This particular Papapian, who has no real name since their society consists of a hive mind, visits Earth seeking some amusement. He finds more than his fair share of it when he ends up fighting the Fantastic Four. He's a particularly difficult opponent since, much like on his own planet, he can quickly shapeshift to counter anything the FF throws at him. Eventually, Reed figures out that the easiest way to defeat the shapeshifting alien is to simply ignore him. As Reed had predicted, the thrill-seeking Impossible becomes bored by the lack of attention and leaves without causing any more harm. A strange visitor possessing supernatural powers and pestering our main characters in a game of fun. Sound familiar? Yes, the Impossible Man seems to be a ripoff of DC's interdimensional imp, Mr. Mxyzptlk. So much so that DC even poked fun at it in Superman Volume 2 issue 50, which suggested that they are the same character, just taking different appearances. I like both DC and Marvel, but it's a fact that when it comes to ripping off characters, Marvel is the bigger repeat offender. Don't shoot the messenger, just stating fact. Even Stan Lee points out to Impossible Man that he needs to change his shtick because he's too much like Mr. Mxyzptlk. Impossible Man frequents Earth a number of more times and lands at the X-Mansion looking for a good time with the X-Men. However, he only meets the New Mutants and they aren't interested in wasting time on his pranks. But when he calls them a bunch of yellow-bellied chickens, one of the New Mutants goes all Marty McFly.
What's wrong, McFly? Chicken?
Nobody calls me.
A battle of who's the best shapeshifter ensues, starting at a dock in Manhattan. Impossible and Warlock turn into Hulk and Thing respectively, and it gives a reminder of what makes these two shapeshifters so unique. They can emulate powers. The pages showcase how these powerhouses punch the dock into complete oblivion, similar to how the originals would have done. There's also one of many hints as to who's going to win. After destroying the dock, the two take the fight to Rio de Janeiro, where they compete in a bodybuilder contest. Cannonball wants to put an end to shenanigans and tosses the duo into the water. This gives us yet another hint as to who is going to be declared the winner. They eventually end up all the way in London, where the competition takes yet another interesting turn. Trying to keep the New Mutants from spoiling their fun, Impossible Man turns into Magneto and bends metal. This proves he's a shapeshifter who can copy non-physical abilities. We just don't know yet to what extent. But that's not all. It turns out that the whole time they've been changing into very specific shapes, heroes and villains, Warlock has been shifting into the likes of Captain America, Captain Britain, while Impossible Man followed suit by changing into that character's most prominent supervillain. And it is here that in terms of powers, they show us their best. Because they're both shapeshifters who can power some items they turn into, they're able to emulate energy-based attacks, such as from pistols, power gauntlets, and even bioelectric stings. However, they switch things up when Warlock changes into Spider-Woman, whom Impy had befriended during a previous visit in Spider-Woman Volume 1, Issue 45. For a minute, it looks like things are cooling down, but they just get worse. Much, much worse. The team ends up teleporting to Moscow, in the Red Square, during a military parade. Tempers run hot as both Warlock and Impossible Man try to keep the New Mutants from ruining their fun. Even the Russian military gets involved, and they suffer the wrath of Impy, potentially causing an international incident. It is here that Impy also shows he has the power to transform things other than himself. Warlock reappears, and they take the fight to Tokyo, where Princess Diana and Prince Charles are currently inspecting the troops and get a bigger surprise than they expected. Much bigger. Because at this point, Warlock and Impy have transformed into the Watcher and Galactus. And it wouldn't be a real visit to Japan without throwing in old Gojira himself. It's obvious that if this little game continues, there won't be much of Tokyo left. But Cypher realizes there is one aspect of shapeshifting that Warlock is superior in. If you've been paying attention, you already know what it is. After a few hints from his teammates, Warlock pulls one last trick out of the bag. You guessed it, he changes color. That's the one thing that Impy is truly limited by. Sure, he's turned into yellow flowers, gray metal, but he can't turn into, say, a blue version of Thanos. It's green and purple for this guy, and that's enough to put an end to the contest. Impy is predictably a sore loser about it, but he eventually comes to his senses. He even helps Warlock undo all the damage they did. So let's break down who's the better shapeshifter. While they can change to different shapes in rapid succession, it's also been established that they both burn energy to do so, especially when employing beam weaponry. Upon his first visit to Earth, Impossible Man had to have a Goku-level buffet to refuel from the flight. Warlock also made an interstellar flight to Earth under his own power, while dodging attacks from his father, and when he reached the X-Mansion, he was so depleted of energy that he almost died. In a fight, Warlock does have the battlefield advantage in that he could turn any organic matter into techno-organics, which he could feed on, meaning he has easier access to an energy source than Impossible. But we're not looking into who would win in a fight, but who's the better shapeshifter. While the comic established that both can alter their density, size, and strength level, Impossible Man's limited ability to copy powers really gives him the edge. But again, that's not much of an asset when the colors you're rocking make it clear you're an imposter. So we'll have to agree with the conclusion of New Mutants Annual Issue 3 that between these two, Warlock is the superior, even though it was his temper that got the best of him. Tune in next time as we look at a shapeshifter whose pride got the best of her and resulted in her eventual downfall. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.